Hey everyone, Sean Walbin with Secure Cyber Defense, and welcome to the second episode of CS Cyber. I'm Sean.
I'm Chad.
And that makes up the CS piece. So today, Chad, I'll go ahead and let you kind of introduce what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the Snowflake breach that just happened. So
it's getting bigger.
It just keeps unraveling.
And I think it's going to keep doing it.
Yeah, so just a few minutes ago, we were just kind of looking at articles, and there was 165 Snowflake customers that were impacted, and I think, Sean, you just found another one. So
yeah, Pure Storage has just indicated that they've also been a victim of that as well.
All right, so let's just kind of start unpacking that, right? So Snowflake is saying that, hey, it's not our infrastructure that's being breached, it's our client's infrastructure. So they've kind of been hush-hush about the client side of that, what's happening. I think some of the information that we've seen is it's an MFA issue. So credentials have been kind of leaked online, or actually one article was talking about InfoStealer malware that has been run on these client devices.
Yep.
And that's really interesting, right? So there's a lot of different variants of InfoStealer malware. I didn't realize that. Did you know that?
Well, one of the things that I've run into so far, I did a episode. I've done a couple episodes on the weekly cyber update where I've talked about the Windows recall feature, that like terrifying feature where they were going to take screenshots of your desktop every couple seconds. And
I just saw today that that's an opt-in now, not on by default.
Right. But one of the things that they talked about is related to the InfoStealer piece, is they were trying to make it like it was completely okay because the information was going to be kept locally. And but that's where the InfoStealer malware comes in, right?
Yeah, you're creating an archive for the InfoStealer malware.
Right. So in one case, in multiple cases, I think we're just making it more convenient for the hackers at this point.
Right. If we could just zip all that information up, that'd be fantastic.
Right. So yeah, I mean, this is a big problem, and I think this also starts the whole discussion of secure by design,
and the shared responsibility model.
Yeah. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that? People may not be familiar with that.
So the shared responsibility model is really a model that there's a demarc, right? I mean, the cloud provider is responsible for X and the client is responsible for Y. And in this scenario, it looks like the customers may have not kept up their end of the bargain, right? So the Snowflake thing, I think MFA was turned off by default and customers had to opt in, turn that on, which isn't really uncommon, I don't think. I mean,
no, not at all.
AWS, Azure,
Microsoft.
They have security features, right? But you have to enable them. You have to secure your own environment. And in here, it looks like people just didn't, right? So some of the names on this list they're not small players in the game. I mean,
no, Advanced Auto Parts was one of them.
Yeah, I mean, TicketMaster, that's a big one, right? So
yeah, 560 million events or 560 million artifacts.
Yeah, I'm probably in there. I bought concert tickets,
me too.
Right? So
sure.
Yeah.
Well, and we brought up Microsoft and the shared security model. I think the best example of people not understanding how that works is O365. You have run into way more of those just based on what you do here, where people go, well, I thought Microsoft was taking care of that for me. I thought when I paid the monthly fee to O365 that security was being handled for me, right? And that's one of the big things that came up with why they created something called Secure Score.
Right. Yeah, so it's just, there's certain things that you have to do to secure your environment the way that you want it secured, right? To work with the rest of your infrastructure, your architecture. Not everybody's in the same place. There's plenty of developers out there that just want to spin up a quick instance, do their thing, and then maybe they're going to shut it down or destroy it, or there's all kinds of different use cases, right? But here, they're running workloads on these things, and it's really a lack in their policy, or someone didn't follow the policy to enable MFA, or there could be a ton of different reasons why, but just another reason that MFA is a big deal. If you don't have it on your personal accounts, you absolutely should. And that's, I do on mine, and I'm working through my family's, and you should just have it enabled on everything. If you value the account, put MFA on it.
Yeah, and people, I think in general, people look at MFA as a really big inconvenience. Looking at S3 buckets as well with Amazon or with AWS, that's another example of when these S3 buckets are compromised. Apps are a really good example of S3 bucket usage. So a lot of apps that you use on Android and iPhone utilize S3 buckets for their storage container, right? But that's a really just another example of how a provider is giving you access to a resource, just like Snowflake was, and saying, look, good luck, right? I mean, here's some best practices. Almost all of these providers provide best practice documentation. I've never actually been into a Snowflake instance, so I don't know if, in their support portal, if they're providing, best practices or if they have something like a secure score, but they might.
I would imagine they do. I mean, they have to have something in their documentation recommending this. I would be shocked if they didn't.
Yeah, no, I agree. But, I'm sure people didn't need a podcast like us to tell them to enforce MFA, right? I mean, but
I run across it all the time. I run across MFA as probably one of the most common things that I talk about with our clients. And I get that exact same kind of feedback, right? Like, well, this is really going to be an inconvenience. Well,
right.
You're going to have a really bad day.
Right.
Talk about inconvenience, right? So, super important to have in place. The info stealer malware is just really interesting to me. Like, I didn't realize there was that many different variants of it, taking that many different things. There's some that will, within 15 minutes, I was reading an article, within 15 minutes of you clicking on a link, and these come in via phishing emails, via like bogus ads on the internet. I mean, you click it, you may get a pirated copy of Photoshop, and you get an info stealer malware, as a sidecar. So, within 15 minutes, it scans your system. It knows everything about you. It's all of your, everything that you've saved in the browser, your credit cards, all that convenience items, you just hand it over.
Right. And it's one of the reasons why, I mean, when I do a lot of public speaking, one of the first things I tell people is do not save your passwords to the browsers, right? That's what password managers are for. We're big advocates. I'm a big advocate for Keeper, which is, a password manager. But I think in general, even with password managers, I think it just starts to get to the point where it's overwhelming for people, right? Well, I have to learn MFA, and then I have to learn a password manager. And, folks, these are core things that you need in your arsenal to be secure online. And we'll have other people say, well, gosh, Advanced Auto Parts and TicketMaster, why, those are large organizations. Wouldn't they have had security personnel? And I don't disagree with you. But the bigger they are, the harder they fall, I have used that analogy twice in the last couple of weeks with people just completely blasted away that they can't believe that these large organizations are falling victim. But their infrastructure, their systems are so large.
Yeah, I mean, this could have been completely off the radar for TicketMaster. I mean, just think of how large TicketMaster is, right? But it only takes one hole, it takes one exception, and then next thing you know, your whole kingdom is crumbling around you. So
I don't know if you remember or not, but I'll have to pull it out of the archives. When we've done trips to Israel, and we went last summer or last winter. To
February,
to Tel Aviv, and there were new technologies over there that they were showing us on our first day, and I think one of them was a service that would scan across all of your cloud infrastructure looking for risk. And I think it's going to take those types of systems to really cross all of these cloud systems to kind of see where you've got misconfigurations. Just the number of incidents that we respond to and we investigate, how many of them have you seen that are just pure misconfigurations?
Oh, a ton.
Right.
I mean, firewall rules, not even in place. Like they may have 100, policies there, but none of them are enabled. So.
Right. So I guess, just to sum up kind of today's set here is, definitely looking at the best practice documents on your platform, whether it's AWS, Snowflake, hop into those support portals and follow those best practices. Obviously MFA, we probably couldn't hammer that enough. And then, probably, looking at, just the misconfiguration. So the configuration of those platforms, and maybe looking to make sure that, that you've done it correctly and it's configured the way you want it to be configured.
Yeah, I think MFA is really just an IT basic at this point. I know a guy that always says, I'm not going to get beat by the basics.
Yeah, I know that guy too.
You know that guy too?
Yeah, he'll probably know it too when he listens to this. But
yeah.
I totally agree with you. And I just hope that people listening to this can learn something from other people's errors. And this list of victims is just going to continue to get larger.
Yeah, and this may be something we talk about again in a couple of weeks as it's kind of unraveled and unfolds and more details come out.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll talk about it again.
All right. Well, thanks, Chad. I appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for watching. And hey, let's be careful out there.